Hey folks, and welcome back to Centered.Live. We're happy to be back with you again, talking about friendship. And my dad had an interesting thing as I left the door quite often. He'd say, if you need a friend, make a friend, right? So that's kind of been ingrained in me. I thought, well, if I need a friend, then I need to be a friend. I need to be friendly to somebody. So anyway, here we are, Centered.Live, Randy Burgoyne, Paul Maloy. We are teachers, old guys with a lot of experience. I'm a techie. Paul's a retired techie.
I guess that's true. and current history teacher and social studies teacher. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you want to know how to entertain kids with history, Paul's your guy right there.
History really can be very fun, and if young people in particular find history to be boring, that's actually not their fault. I would say that's the fault of a teacher somewhere. At any rate, we are glad to be back with you, and we have carefully selected this episode's topic of sharing thoughts and feelings about the timeless value of human connection and friendship.
Yeah, so I like to think about the digital friendships that we've created here.
Digital, huh? That almost sounds like AI has gone too far.
Well, there's something to that, but I have to keep reminding people that AI is just a computer. It has no feelings. It has no personality. You can't defend it. It just kind of shuts up if you try to be too weird on it. But no, I'm talking about real people, digital friendships, because we've got social media platforms and so many different ways that hasn't been around ever. I mean, this is kind of a new thing in society. I'm sure there's been other social issues that have brought up friendship and how we have a relationship with people. But this is
even what we're doing right now. I mean, this type of opportunity and platform didn't exist just a few years ago. And even though podcasts have now been around for several years, the web component, the video component is something that is relatively new. And of course, for you and I, as long-term friends, we decided to leverage that relationship and to explore multiple kinds of topics that were not only interesting to us, but hopefully interesting to a listening audience.
Yeah. And those kind of friendships are deep and personal. And sometimes we look at the digital friendships now that we create are pretty superficial.
Absolutely can be. And we have to be careful with that.
Real deep. And so I think one thing that we ought to look at is we will discuss is the physical connection, standing by someone, having lunch with someone versus communicating like this as if we're a talk show host or something.
And then sometimes, saying, hey, I have a relationship with millions of people in the audience. Well, yeah, for sure. And it's also, I think, really vital to understand that we as human beings, that we were created in a way to value relationships with others. And I mean that truly and sincerely, that we are social creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And our collective belief is that that has been an enormous blessing. And it was intended to be so from the very beginning. We were not intended to be lone creatures wandering and trying to survive. In point of fact, we learned very quickly, even if you look at the whole concept of evolutionary development, human beings learned very quickly about the need to work together and to bind together in clans, and from there into communities, and from there into states and countries, right?
Right.
And in fact, today I was teaching some of my students about the importance of culture, and how that interplays with both small groups and large groups. But again, looking a little bit historically, it's important to recognize friendships as the value that they bring or brought to our understanding today. And a good example of that is actually in the relationship between Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, who, after their work on the Declaration of Independence and after their associations with the development of the Constitution of the United States, they became fierce rivals. In point of fact, they ran against each other for president of the United States, and John Adams was elected, and Thomas Jefferson was his vice president. And then later, Thomas Jefferson will be elected to be president of the United States, and he will practically cancel everything that John Adams ever did. But the more important thing is that they maintained a working professional relationship between each other that spanned the decades until the day they died, which was, interestingly enough, July 4th. They both passed away on the same day, not the same date, literally the same day, within just a
Okay.
few hours of each other. And what they
Wow.
left behind in terms of their writings affirmed how much they respected each other, even when they did not agree politically on several pretty key aspects. So again, recognizing the importance and the value of really good friendships.
Right. That's interesting that some of those friendships throughout history have shaped, our political climate,
Mhm.
our professional climate.
Right?
Um, for example, let's take a look at LinkedIn is a great platform for business people, for
Mhm.
collaborators. I think in the recent years, it's kind of turned to more of a open job market, but really, still the underlying purpose there remains is that on a professional level, it's important to network with
Right.
individuals with similar interests and similar likes. And where else can you share, with 50,000 of your closest friends something that is news to you or to your company or your organization?
Right. Right. Absolutely. And again, like you said, the opportunity to network together and to um, not only stay on top of what is happening in terms of a specific industry, but also to then leverage that relationship in case you need to be looking for a new job. And certainly, I know that many, probably hundreds of thousands of people have created those LinkedIn profiles and in other job search environments to be able to leverage knowledge and relationships. And again, relationships being the key word there. Um, Speaking of a professional relationship that we are not often aware of, is that Madame Curie and Albert Einstein actually corresponded with each other as fellow scientists of the same time frame.
Mm,
And their bond was based on their intellectual respect and mutual support of the work that each of them was doing. Now, keep in mind, they were dramatically different areas of science, right? And yet, their relationship transcended what I would say was any kind of professional competition. And again, how vital that can be as an encouragement. So this comes down to a cooperation versus a competition. And I think,
mm.
Americans seem to be by culture very competitive. But I also think that the more that we can learn how much more powerful we are together, working together than working separately, then we have the potential to go much, much, much farther.
Yeah. That brings up an interesting thought that I had that may be a whole nother episode that we can talk about.
Oh, interesting.
And that is the business concept of freely sharing your knowledge rather than controlling it with patents and
hoarding it and copyrights, patents, trademarks.
Right. And I guess that's, part of friendship, but you look at companies that have that kind of open things and people think, oh, they're crazy, they're going to lose their business, and whew, they're wildly successful and they have a lot of friends.
Yeah, that would be interesting to explore on another episode. I agree, because then we could talk about the difference between IBM and Apple.
Right. There we go.
Frenemies, I think, would be a good way of putting that.
Yeah, I was thinking more of Tesla automobile versus Ford, but
right. Yeah, true.
But there are a lot of modern day social movements that are shaped by the online communities, and
absolutely,
there's been stories of people that have a particular cause or an interest, and they'll broadcast a meeting of some sort. It could be for good or bad. It could be a revolt. It could be just supporting somebody. GoFundMe to get people, but that's kind of a way of connecting with people, of making friends, of sharing your cause, and people respond to that. And I think that's an innate nature, like you talked about. Is it's something that we desire. We desire to be part of a cause, a group that has a common interest, a movement.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
You can use
and we see it. We definitely see it in current times, and that goes beyond political affiliations. It certainly goes into, like, for example, work within the environment, work within preservation of wildlife, work to further scientific study. And I think of, for example, the incredible work that SpaceX has done in the last several years. But I am glad that you brought up, the whole social movement context, because again, looking historically, it's interesting to note how widespread the relationship building was with Martin Luther King Jr. during the civil rights movement of the late 50s and early 60s. And ultimately, because of his assassination, how devastating that was to a much, much bigger community than just specifically for African Americans or Black Americans. And I think that it's important to recognize that sometimes when we see something that is true and just, as in fair, that we do tend to come together in communities that support those initiatives, and we gain traction as more and more people come into that kind of community and enclave. So definitely something that, again, becomes part of not just who we are, but what we want to accomplish.
Right. And there's I'm a technologist. I love technology, and I wanted just to highlight one little observation that I had regarding social networks and online communities and such. And that is I call it the pre-COVID era, where, the 2000 to 2020, where you had, kind of the birth or the growth of the internet. Social networks were born, and like I joined Facebook in 2007. you can, I think that's a long time ago, right?
Yeah, you must have been one of the first adopters, and I'm one of the last adopters.
Yeah. Well,
I think we've mentioned that before on an episode, but yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I think I mentioned before that the reason I joined Facebook is my daughter that had my first grandson said to me, "Well, if you want to see pictures of your grandson, just join Facebook. I post them there almost every day."
No, there you
I'm going,
go.
"What's Facebook?" I'm on there. I got to have this if I'm going to see pictures. So it was a driving force for me to join Facebook, and that's almost 20 years ago. But okay, let's back to my story. we get that section, but before COVID, where social networks are growing, and they're becoming kind of almost a controlling factor in our lives by about 2018, 2019. And then hits COVID. Now, those social networks become invaluable
Mhm.
because then we're all isolated, and that's our only thing that we have is
Yeah.
our digital networks, our way to reach out, whether it's Zoom or Facebook or WhatsApp or text messaging or whatever. Those kind of services just grew
Yeah.
considerably. I think that Microsoft lost a lot of business because Skype wasn't ready. They were
Mm.
in a transition mode, and they just didn't do the right things with Skype. Microsoft, bought Skype and was just transitioning it to their platform. They missed the boat there. That's just my opinion. But since COVID, I think that we've learned how important the in-person interaction with people is, because it was taken away. And
Right.
what becomes scarce becomes valuable, type
Right.
of thing, and that interact. So we craved that personal interaction. So I think in a good sense, that's what's come out of that. And since then, maybe we've fallen back into the comfort zones a little bit of, making our social interactions on electronic platform instead of face to face and person to person.
And there is something to be said about, again, what we're doing right here, right now, in that we are, in essence, even though we're not in the same physical location, we are, in
Mhm.
essence, face to face, and we are interacting together. And we, you and I, have found great value in this exchange of ideas and exploration of thoughts and feelings.
Right.
Um, and in a very real way, um, because of this Centered.Live webcast, we now have a regular um, time to meet together, to talk together, to explore and discuss. Um, Whereas before, we would go sometimes, obviously, several months without communicating together. We always got together. We enjoyed the relationship, and certainly
Yeah.
our wives have enjoyed the relationship together. And we have been great and close friends now for 42 years.
Yeah.
And and I've been blessed to have several deep and long-lasting friendships. But one of the things that is interesting in this particular scenario with you and I is that, again, we now have combined to get together and produce this webcast in a way that we hope provides value to, again, to a wider audience. And we do that out of our deep trust and love for each other.
Hmm.
And I think that again, hopefully those who listen recognize that that is the case, and then see as a transparency to what it is that we're trying to do, based on, again, that relationship, which has been very real for multiple decades.
Yeah. Well, and I want to just go back to my intro when I talked about what my dad said about,
Mm,
if you need a friend, be a friend. And there's a lot to be said for looking for somebody that needs a friend and finding something common, some common interest that you can talk about. You can appreciate. You don't have to be the same.
Right.
You don't have to be the same ethnic background. You don't have to be
Same political background,
right.
aka Thomas Jefferson John Adams, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many differences that you can have that still enrich each other because you have a great respect for that person and what they say. And that respect and loyalty grows over time and becomes the brotherly love, the sisterly love, in fact, it's the love that Christ talked to us about in his mission of, well, your first commandment is to love God. Second, to love your fellow man as you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
which is something we all need to practice.
Right.
Every day.
And there's
everyone.
a balance of self and others, and self
Yeah.
and others. And,
yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to balance between self and others. And sometimes others, take it a little bit. But, I think that our bodies, our minds are geared to balance that out over time. So
yeah, and hearts and souls as well, right?
Yep.
And again, I want to emphasize one of your points there, Randy, and that is that when we take the time to really know somebody and value the differences that they bring to a relationship, that relationship can only be enhanced if it is done through respect and love and kindness and consideration. Patience sometimes is a requirement there as well.
Mhm.
But when I say that, again, throughout history, there have been plenty of examples of those who deliberately invited people into their inner circle, if you will, both professionally and in terms of a friendship relationship, to somebody who is different than them. If I may, just real quick, when I was working for Novell, and this goes back obviously a long time ago because Novell doesn't exist anymore, even though at one point they were the world leader in networking hardware and software.
Mhm.
But they don't exist anymore. But when they were kind of in their heyday, I was working in their education department, no surprise there. And I was given the permission, if you will, to hire somebody to help me with my workload. And when I put the notice out, and I had very quickly, I think 5 or 6 people that I thought, oh, these are good candidates. And so I invited them in and I interviewed them. And I remember very distinctly that 3 of them came in highly qualified. But I could tell that they had pretty much the same skill set that I had. And I needed somebody that had a complementary skill set. And in came a young man that became a very dear friend. His name was Lou Eastman. And Lou had long hair and a ponytail that went practically down to the middle of his back. He had a flower shirt on and sandals. And for whatever reason, I liked him immediately because I could tell, and especially in our discourse, our interchange, that we thought differently. We had looked at problems from opposite ends of the spectrum. And I don't mean that politically. I'm talking about real problem solving. And I hired him because he was the yin to my yang. And we locked in together, and the work that we turned out was spectacular, because where he needed some help from my skill set, I could provide that. And where I needed help from his skill set, he could provide that. So that has long been a great lesson to me in terms of valuing people who are tremendously different than me. And as a result, I learned how to enjoy ska rock music. Because Lou was really into that, and was in a band that played ska music. And I would have missed all of that had I not had that relationship with Lou. Great friend,
Right.
great friend.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that helps me look back on some of the relationships that I've had at work environments,
Hmm.
because certainly you have some similarities between your coworkers
Sure,
and
sure.
some differences. But I think that finding the common grounds where you can work together, like you said, where you have complementary skills, is really
Right,
where the value is. And
right.
that's a deep philosophy when you're talking about making friends. And I guess just to wrap up, I would think that if we look at our friendship
Hmm.
42 years ago, um, there's certainly times when we've lived closer together that's been easier to get together. Those times that we're farther apart, it's harder. Technology helps a lot,
It can.
it can, but using it to enrich but not
Hmm.
replace our
Hmm.
friendship, I think, is what's key. Keeping that balance between in person and keeping in touch long distance.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I just wanted to leave a thought that make sure that you're using technology to enrich your friendships and make it more valuable and more deep in your life than having it take away and just making it superficial, which it can
Yeah,
do.
absolutely. And let me just also throw in here real quick that how important it is to be wise in the friends that you do choose. And I say that
Mhm.
in particular to the young people worldwide, in that it's easy to lose the connection with what is real, and I'm thinking specifically of good supportive family relationships, perhaps in favor of a temporary relationship of somebody that you think is a friend but is actually not going to support you, not going to help you, and is ultimately trying to drag you down and to destroy maybe the friendships that are of greater value. And now that doesn't mean, unfortunately, that every family is ideal. And sometimes in those less than ideal family relationships, it's vital. It's so crucial to have a great friend that you can rely on, and somebody that you can share your feelings and thoughts with, and they will be validated. And then from there, they can be a solution could be looked for, even if one doesn't readily come forward. At least you're in that scenario together, right? And it is so easy to think that just because somebody says they like you and then says, hey, let's hang out together, but if it is going to destroy other relationships, then we need to be very, very careful. And certainly, I have met a number of people who chose poorly in their friend relationship, and it cost them, in some cases, even their actual freedom.
Mm.
And in other cases, it may have destroyed their peace of mind and caused a lot of problems. So be wise. One of the things that I think as we wrap up here is that we need to remember to cherish the real life bonds that make us human. And I also love what Bill and Ted say in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which is simply be excellent to each other.
Yes. That's good. Nice, nice. I like that. And I think that's a good ending point. Be excellent. Thanks, folks, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Centered Live.